April Fool's Day, also whimsically known as All Fool's Day in some dusty corners of the English-speaking world, or simply that one peculiar date on the calendar when the fabric of everyday seriousness frays just a little at the edges and allows for a burst of orchestrated absurdity, is an annual custom observed primarily on the first day of April in numerous countries across the globe, though its tendrils of influence have crept into various cultural nooks and crannies far beyond its supposed Western origins. At its core, or rather, at what one might loosely call its core, if we were to pretend it has anything as rigid as a Corporal Fool's Day, revolves around the playful, sometimes elaborate, and often entirely harmless act of perpetrating practical jokes, hoaxes, pranks, and general tomfoolery upon unsuspecting friends, family members, co-workers, strangers, and even entire populations through the clever dissemination of fabricated stories or misleading scenarios, all culminating in the triumphant, or at least mildly satisfying, revelation of the deception with the exclamation, "April Fool," or some linguistic equivalent thereof, such as Poisson d'avril in French-speaking regions, or Innocenti in certain Latin American traditions. But wait, to truly grasp the essence of this day, one must understand that it is not merely a date for mischief. No, it is a multifaceted tapestry woven from threads of historical ambiguity, seasonal renewal, human psychology's innate love for the unexpected twist, and a centuries-long tradition of gently poking fun at the very notion of certainty in our lives. It is a day when the ordinary rules of social decorum are temporarily suspended, allowing even the most buttoned-up individual to revel in the art of gentle deception, only to have the tables turned in the most unpredictable ways, thereby reminding us all that life itself is full of little surprises that we might as well embrace with a chuckle rather than a furrowed brow. To delve even deeper into a definition that could stretch on for pages if one were so inclined, and indeed, we shall endeavor to make it so. For the sake of this very long and delightfully pointless exploration, April Fool's Day defies simple categorization because it is less a fixed holiday with prescribed rituals and more a fluid, evolving phenomenon of cultural playfulness that has adapted itself to the whims of societies over time. It is not a religious observance, nor a national holiday in the strictest sense, though in some places it carries the weight of tradition akin to a minor festival. Instead, it is a celebration of folly itself, where the fool is not the victim but the hero of the moment, and the prankster is hailed for their creativity rather than condemned for their trickery. One might even argue, in a purely speculative and utterly unnecessary manner, that April Fool's Day serves as a societal pressure valve, a brief interlude where the accumulated tensions of winter's and in spring's chaotic arrival are released through laughter, much like how ancient peoples might have danced around bonfires to ward off the last chills of the cold season. Yet, paradoxically, it is also a day that invites skepticism. After all, on April 1st, every news headline, every casual remark, every seemingly innocuous email could be a setup, forcing the wary participant to navigate the hours with a heightened sense of awareness that borders on paranoia, only to realize, at day's end, that the greatest fool might be the one who took everything too seriously. And so in this extended definition, we circle back to the heart of it. April Fool's Day is the annual reminder that humor thrives in the unexpected, that deception can be a gift when wrapped in goodwill, and that the line between truth and jest is thinner than the paper fish one might find stuck to their back in certain European locales. Now, turning our attention to the history of this enigmatic day, a history so shrouded in speculation, scholarly debate, and outright contradictory theories that one could fill an entire library wing with books that ultimately conclude we're not entirely sure. We embark on a journey through time that is as meandering and pointless as the day itself demands. The origins of April Fool's Day are, by all accounts from historians and folklorists alike, lost in the mists of antiquity, with no single definitive moment of birth, but rather a gradual coalescence of customs that bubbled up from various springs of human celebration. One of the most persistently cited theories traces it back to the 16th century in France, during the tumultuous transition from the Julian calendar established centuries earlier by Julius Caesar himself. That great Roman who had a knack for reorganizing time, to the more accurate Gregorian calendar introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 under the old Julian system. The new year had often been observed around the spring equinox, roughly March 25th, or even extending into early April in some regions, aligning with the natural rhythms of renewal and rebirth after winter. But when King Charles IX of France officially decreed in the Edict of Roussillon in 1564 that the new year would henceforth begin on January 1st, not everyone received or accepted the memo promptly. Those slower to adapt, or perhaps stubbornly clinging to the old ways, continued their festivities into late March and early April, only to be mocked by their more calendar-savvy neighbors as April Fools or Poisson d'Avarié, the latter a term evoking the image of a young naive fish easily caught in the streams of spring. This tale of calendar confusion has been retold so often that it feels almost canonical. Yet it remains just one thread in a much larger, more tangled web, for record suggests that similar pranking customs existed even before this shift, hinting that the day might have deeper roots than a mere administrative reform. But let us not stop there, for the history grows rich and pointlessly more layered when we consider earlier possible influences from the ancient world. Some scholars, in their endless quest to connect dots across millennia, point to the Roman festival of Hilaria, a joyous celebration held around the end of March in honor of the goddess Cybele, involving disguises, mockeries of authority figures, and general revelry that mirrored the spirit of reversal and absurdity we associate with April Fool's Day today. This festival, inspired in part by Egyptian myths of Isis, Osiris, and Seth, allowed citizens to dress up, poke fun at magistrates, and embrace the chaotic joy of spring's arrival. Much like how modern pranksters might send a colleague on a wild goose chase for non-existent items. Others speculate connections to even older pagan rites in Britain or Celtic traditions, where the vernal equinox, that precise astronomical moment when day and night balance perfectly marked a time of trickery by nature itself, with sudden weather shifts fooling farmers and travelers alike. There is even a disputed reference in Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales from 1392 in The Nun's Priest Tale, where a cock named Chanticleer is tricked by a fox since March began 32 days, which some interpret as alluding to April 1st, though modern linguists often chalk this up to a scribal error, placing the event in May instead. Imagine the scholarly ink spilled over that single line. Debates raging in dusty university halls about whether a medieval poet inadvertently birthed a global tradition or simply miscalculated his avian calendar. As the custom evolved and spread across Europe, By the 17th and 18th centuries, it took on distinctly local flavors, each adding pointless layers of complexity to the narrative. In England, the earliest printed mentions appear in the late 1600s, with antiquarian John Aubrey noting it as Fool's Holy Day in 1686, describing it as a time for sending people on fruitless errands, such as hunting for pigeon's milk at the apothecary or strap oil at the harness shop, a delightfully archaic form of hazing that involved a literal swat for the unsuspecting boy. By the 1700s, it had become a staple of British life, with newspapers and pamphlets documenting pranks like the infamous washing of the lions at the Tower of London in 1698, where gullible Londoners were invited to witness a non-existent ceremonial cleaning of the royal beasts, only to be turned away with a wink and an April Fool. This hoax was repeated for decades, becoming a sort of meta-tradition in itself. Scotland, ever the land of extended merriment, stretched the festivities into 2 full days. April 1st as Hunt the Gook Day, where gook, an old term for a kookaburra or fool, would be dispatched with sealed letters reading "Dinna laugh, dinna smile, hunt the gook another mile," sending victims on endless loops of pointless errands until realization dawned. Followed by Taily Day on April 2nd, focused on pinning fake tails or kick-me signs to the derrieres of the unwary. One can picture the Highland moors echoing with laughter as these dual-day deceptions unfolded, a testament to the Scottish knack for prolonging a good jest far beyond what others might deem necessary. Venturing further afield, the history of April Fool's Day reveals a truly global patchwork of adaptations, each culture infusing the day with its own pointless yet charming idiosyncrasies that only add to the day's enduring appeal. In France and French-speaking Switzerland, Belgium, and parts of Italy, it is forever tied to the Poisson de Vel, or April fish, where children and playful adults craft paper fish and stealthily affix them to the backs of victims, shouting the phrase upon discovery, as a nod to the gullibility of young fish in spring streams. This tradition dates back at least to a 1508 French poem by Éloy de Merville, making it one of the earliest documented references, and it persists today with schoolchildren giggling over their handmade aquatic pranks. Italy echoes this with Peste d'April, turning it into a group game where everyone inquires about the missing fish until the fool is revealed. Spain and much of Latin America, however, shift the date entirely to December 28th for Dia de los Inocentes, or Day of the Innocents, rooted in a Catholic feast but transformed into a prank-filled affair, complete with town-wide food fights in places like LBI, Alicante, where mock military takeovers involve flower throwing, strange laws, and charitable fines. A chaotic spectacle blending history, religion, and absurdity in one flower-dusted package. In Scotland we already lingered, but in Iran the equivalent fun emerges during Sajda Badar, the 13th day of the Persian New Year, around early April, known as Dorwi Sajda, or the Lie of 13, where fibs are told with gleeful abandon. Even farther east, whispers of similar customs appear in India, around Holi, the Festival of Colors, though it overlaps more with spring revelry than strict April 1st timing. The 19th and 20th centuries marked the golden age of April Fool's Day's evolution into a media spectacle, where newspapers, radio, television, and eventually the internet amplified pranks to epic proportions, turning local jests into international sensations and adding yet more pointless historical footnotes. Earliest recorded printed hoax in Britain might be the 1860 Great Donkey Exhibition or various lion-washing invitations. But it was the 20th century that truly shone. Consider the Legendary 1957 BBC Panorama broadcast on the Swiss spaghetti harvest. A 3-minute segment showing farmers in Ticino plucking strands of pasta from trees, complete with voiceover about the eradication of the dreaded spaghetti weevil and a bumper crop thanks to a mild winter. Millions tuned in. Bewildered viewers flooded the BBC with calls asking how to grow their own spaghetti trees at home only to be advised. Deadpan to plant a sprig in tomato sauce and hope for the best. This hoax, widely regarded as one of the greatest in broadcasting history, cemented April Fool's Day as prime time for media mischief. Not to be outdone, Sweden's 1962 television prank instructed viewers on a DIY method to convert black and white TVs to color by stretching a nylon stocking over the screen and adjusting the knobs just so, complete with a professor's earnest demonstration that left audiences fiddling with their sets in vain. In 1974, Alaskan logger Oliver Porky Bicker orchestrated the fake eruption of Mount Edgecombe by igniting 70 old tires in the crater via helicopter, complete with April Fool painted in massive letters, visible from the air, after panicking locals called authorities. The list of famous pranks stretches on endlessly, each one a pointless yet brilliant addition to the annals. Taco Bell's 1996 announcement that it had purchased the Liberty Bell and renamed it the Taco Liberty Bell to help reduce national debt, sparking outraged calls to the National Park Service until the retraction. The 1980 Boston TV fake report of Mount Edgecombe's eruption in Massachusetts actually a separate Great Blue Hill hoax. Or Google's myriad digital jests, the 2000 Google Pigeon Internet, promising AVN-powered email delivery. Newspapers joined the fray too, with the 1905 Berliner Tageblatt claiming thieves had tunneled under the U.S. Treasury to steal all gold and silver, or the Chicago Tribune's 1906 dinosaur invasion illustrations. Even in more recent decades, hoaxes like the BBC's 2008 Flying Penguins documentary or NPR's 1992 fake Richard Nixon presidential run announcement kept the spirit alive, proving that no medium is safe from the day's infectious folly. These pranks were not just isolated events, but part of a broader historical momentum, where April Fool's Day became a canvas for creativity, satire, and the gentle subversion of authority, whether that authority was a news anchor, a corporation, or the very concept of factual reporting. Yet to make this history truly pointless in its exhaustive detail, we must linger on the psychological and sociological undercurrents that have sustained the tradition through wars, technological revolutions, and cultural shifts. Why do humans crave this annual dose of deception? Some pointless theorizing suggests it taps into evolutionary roots of play behavior, where mock aggression or surprise builds social bonds and sharpens wits without real risk, much like kittens batting at shadows or ancient hunters mimicking animal calls. Others ramble about its role as a seasonal rite of passage, coinciding with spring's unpredictable weather that fools us all with sudden showers or false warmth. In modern times, with social media amplifying every prank to viral status, April Fool's Day has morphed into a global digital playground, where one ill-advised hoax can spark outrage or delight within minutes, only to fade into the ether by April 2nd. And still the debates persist. Is it a remnant of medieval Feast of Fools celebrations, where social roles reversed in carnivalesque mockery? Or perhaps a pagan holdover from Druidic spring rites in ancient Britain? The truth, as with so much in history, is delightfully elusive. inviting endless speculation that adds volume but little clarity. In wrapping up this very long, meandering, and ultimately pointless definition in history, though one could continue indefinitely with anecdotes from Armenia's April roll, revelations, Germany's shouted April apple, disclaimers, Vietnam's baby-related jests, Slovenia's fairy tale fabrications, or even the Irish tradition of entrusting victims with important letters to non-existent recipients, we arrive at the realization that April Fool's Day endures precisely because it resists. Definition: it is a day of laughter in the face of uncertainty, a historical echo chamber of human playfulness that is echoed from Roman forums to French fish stickers to modern meme factories. Whether you're crafting a paper fish in Paris, dodging flower bombs in Spain, or simply waiting for the next viral hoax from your favorite tech giant, the day invites you to embrace the fool within. And on that note, dear listener, if you've made it this far through this epic ramble, well, April Fool. Or perhaps not, after all, in the grand pointless scheme of things, every day holds a little folly if we choose to see it. Happy pranking and happy April Fool's Day.